Hi, my name is Sally Bernard, an artist, author, and spiritual experiencer. Welcome to Call Me Zena, a true story into the spiritual realms. Join me as I sit and discuss the journey of self-discovery, and with the help of my spirit guides, it's time to trust your intuition. Sit with me and call in live, 888-994-4995, Studio A. And now onto the show. Hi, good afternoon, everybody. I have to say this before I say anything, we have a really, really exciting show. I have some wonderful guests in the studio. Dawn, who's over there, Dana's now sitting on Dawn's seat, but that's part of the show right now. We have Max, and then I have Steve, my husband, sitting in the corner. So here we go, and please call in if you have any questions for me, 954, it's got the wrong number up there. 888. Can you give the number, Dawn? You know where I'm at with this point.
888-994-4995, Studio A.
I was about to give someone else's number out. That doesn't ring true to me here. Okay, so we're call in, especially if you have my book and there was anything that you saw maybe in the book. You may not get an opportunity during this show, but anytime, give me a call on my show and ask me a question.
How can somebody get your book?
Oh, that's right. But I usually have other people because I'm getting into that zone where I'm kind of not quite here. Amazon or Author House.
Or scan the QR code on the screen.
Thank you, Steve. Yeah, of course, you can also do it for me. Thank you. So just so you know, Dana, at this point, I kind of get into what I call a trance-like state. So it's hard for me to talk normally, but I can answer any questions, as you know. So on with the show. So let's start with you, Dina. I cannot wait.
I'm super excited also. So we probably met 3 weeks to a month ago, and in our conversation, we got you to an even deeper state where I connected with it was a Pleiadian collective. There were guides for you, but they were of light beings.
Right.
And I was wondering if we could connect with them today, because earlier when I walked in the midday show, there was this whole talk about frequency, and that's the direction I wanted to go in. So it's a nice little part 2 to that. It's a part 3 to a conversation I had on the midday show last week, and I think that they will have some real incredible insight for us.
And that's amazing, I say, because I still am in awe of everything that happens, and I never ever want to lose that. I never want to take for granted what we do. I just love what we do. And I think that, for me personally, but anybody that feels that way too, and I think you do.
For sure,
and there are people, and not to criticize anyone, because we're all on individual journeys, that say, oh yeah, that happened. Well, even my guide, who was my guide on Earth here, Aldo, and I used to go like that and say, that's amazing. He'll look at me, and wonderful. I've never said anything bad about him, but he'd look at me and say, well, it's to be expected. And I know that's where he was coming from, because he was on very, very high vibrational energy. And I go, but you don't feel it? He, of course, did, but his showing was a little different to mine, and I see that today.
I see it both ways. I'm sorry. I see it both ways. Like, a part of me is like, that's to be expected, because I understand how things fall into place.
Right.
But the other part of me is giddy, like a little kid. And my friends, we're all like, I didn't even know that was a thing. Like, we get all excited. Yeah. So I appreciate your enthusiasm.
And you saw that yesterday. We went out with some friends at lunch, and they didn't know. She didn't know what I did. But she was talking to me, and I think she said, can I have your card? Well, my card says psychic channel and whatever I do, past life. And she looked at me and she said, oh my God, why didn't you tell me? I've only met her twice before. But of course, her energy now was attached to mine. And then she said to me, I was getting this name. And I had to. It wasn't a conversation about energies or anything. We were having lunch. But then I mentioned a name to her. Actually, I don't know if she said she'd listened to the show maybe today. And she looked at me and she said, yes, that means something. And then I used a word that I don't usually say. It's adding up to why I got that moment again. And I said, he's very protective of you. Well, she said, can I at least tell you who he is? Because I didn't want, she said it was my dad. Well, Dina, I just went, like I did that? And I've been doing this.
Yeah.
That's the reason I said that to you.
There's another part. You actually said her dad's name.
Yes, I did. I don't know. Well, it doesn't matter. We don't know who we're talking
Yeah.
about. But I said, do you have a John? And she just, was
Yeah.
quiet because I didn't want any reaction. But I was surprised myself.
Yeah.
And I've done this.
Yeah.
Not ego, but I've done it many, many
Yeah.
times. So I don't want to lose that.
And hello,
Anyway.
Judy, if you are watching.
Okay, yes, she said she might do, Judy, yeah.
So, you ready?
Yes, I'm
You ready?
I'm
Okay,
ready.
so do whatever it is you have to do to get in the zone, but I would love to connect with that. They started with an M. I don't remember what they called themselves, but it was the Pleiadian Collective.
Well, the good thing is, actually, you can get me to that by just the conversation. I don't, and everybody has their own way.
Oh, you don't
want
want to just call them out?
But I can, if it's, I'm going deeper because I feel, okay, just by talking, by you
Okay.
asking me questions,
Okay.
or anybody, but especially you because we are on a very similar energy, I get there kind of within a few, I'm going to say, let's say a minute, but
Okay.
it doesn't take that long.
Okay, so I would like to connect with them or anybody who shares the frequency, but what I would like to talk about is, just to give a little bit of context, last week I was talking about manifestation on my show, on my segment. And when I was talking about manifestation, I was really, really focused on the concept of frequency. Now, earlier, Max had asked about frequency, like what does that even mean? Because I take it for granted. And the idea of frequency is if we all vibrate at a certain place, how do we know how we vibrate? A lot of it is how we feel because our body is a GPS. And I guess what I want to ask them is, if we all carry a frequency and we are connecting with experiences around us and align with those experiences, I would like their insight on what that looks like for us as humans in order to elevate the frequency collectively.
Well, they're actually telling me that prior to this show here, the one before, on the one that you just came into on their show, they were with me throughout that show. And I know you didn't hear parts of it because they're aware of that. But our conversation was very much into frequency. And they were with me at that point. We brought them, I'm going to say they because the names, I'll get names if it's a psychic reading right away.
Yeah.
But for some reason with me, they like to form it as saying a collective.
Yeah.
And that makes sense to me because I've done that for a long time. So I'm going to say the collective of the Palladians, which I was
Pleiadian
not aware of. So that's what we're talking about, and they're talking to me. The frequency, and it's like what we were just talking about where you were there. It's like a ladder, and they gave me that analogy. We all come in with this knowing. We all have it innate in us, but we don't know that we have it. So during the period, and each lifetime, it might be someone else's time for next lifetime, or someone's come in from a last lifetime. So we go up a ladder with frequency. And many people relate to that as the law of attraction. But actually, it is that, but there is different names for that. So as we reach each frequency, and you have to do each frequency, even though you're starting with maybe knowing from the top, doesn't matter. You start to do it little by little on each step ladder, as we were talking about, Max. So they were with me in giving that analogy. So each frequency that we're at, and it's really kind of simple, it's not complicated. We start off as children, and we see what children see. And as we grow older, that what we were looking at suddenly becomes, because we're learning, unless we're born, like my friend Aldo was at 1, he was reading a newspaper. But everybody thought, how can he be doing that? But now my understanding is, of course he could, because he was born and he'd done, even if, let's say he'd done it in other lifetimes, which I know he had, but in this lifetime, he might have done it from 0 to 1 year, because he knew how to read a newspaper. So on the lower frequencies, we're attracting where we're at. So as we gain more knowing within ourselves, and some people quicker than others, there's no time, but it relates to time here. Oh, I got that at 6 years. I got my awakening at 12 years. It doesn't matter. It's the fact that we're going up that ladder. So the more that we climb, we're attracting where we are at that level of frequency. So as you gain more higher, let's say on a higher part of that ladder, where I have definitely come over this last weekend. I know it, I touch it, but I fall back. And I know better that I want to stay there. It's entirely up to us. We can only teach by example. My example is to stay at that higher level as long as I can. But at that level, I'm going to meet you. I'm going to meet people in the studio who are at that level and even higher than I am. But you recognize it. And the energy that you keep, if you keep it at that, it's just, we're energy. So that energy is expanding and expanding and right there, right now. So the more that we talk about it on a higher level, more and more people that we're going to see. So I'm now going back to the first part of the question, which, if you wouldn't mind, could you repeat? For Sally, not so much for the...
Yeah, what did I ask?
You see? We're at that. Okay, there was a reason for that.
So let me just, because the way you're speaking, I could see that it might be a little bit confusing. So I just want to kind of bring it all home. What I'm understanding is, we all, even though we come to this planet with this knowing,
right,
we still come here. There's this veil of forgetfulness.
Of course.
And when we come here and we have our experiences, the whole name of the game is to learn, to grow, to expand, and to raise our frequency. If we want to, Max, this is for you. If we want to stay here, and please, Pleiadian Collective, correct me if I'm wrong, but if let's just say I'm having an experience with somebody who mistreats me, I'm having a relationship with somebody who mistreats me, which taps into my self-doubt and my unworthiness and my insecurities, but I stay in that relationship, I have chosen to stay in that frequency, to take a little bit longer to learn. There's nothing, It doesn't make me wrong, it just means that's the longer I'm taking to learn that lesson. However, the lessons are going to get harder, it's going to get harder to learn it. Talk about this in 10 racks, about the T-punch, right? And to move up to the next frequency. But when you learn the lesson, take the risks, release things that no longer serve you, not only do you raise your frequency, but all of a sudden it feels yucky to be with anybody who's in that lower self-doubt, insecurity, lack of worthiness frequency. And then all of a sudden these unicorns of the higher frequency that you've now leveled up to show up out of nowhere, and now you have new experiences that are open to you. It's like a video game. It's blurred, and then you kill the right monster and you get the right gold, and it opens up.
And I think the analogy that I had used earlier, through them helping me, which they are right now, I was going from 1 to 4 or 5 people in a room. One sitting here, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5.
In the show, you talked about
this. So the question that was asked, if you asked me a question or anybody asks a question, they may all come up with different answers to the same question. They're relevant to where they are.
Yep,
to
100%.
Explain it a little bit easier.
Give them perspective.
So number 1 is going to hear the question or whatever it is they're discussing, but number 5 is going to hear the same sentence, but totally different view on that. It's the same words, but depending where we are in our frequency here, from 1 to 5, we'll answer or see it differently. Not even answer, we'll just see it differently to answer differently. But then it doesn't stop. So I would say from then, to make it simple where they're doing for me, from 5 to 10. So from 5 now, everybody in the room is a 5. No, not the numbers of the people. They'll go to 6. Now that could be a day, it could be a month, it could be 10 years, it could be the next lifetime. It doesn't matter. There is no time. But the fact is we're learning. So we're going from 1 to 5 is easier than from 5 to 10. It's the same words, and I hear that, and I heard that before I came to the show. I can read a book and interpret that book completely a different way, depending on where I am at. Yes. And that applies to everybody. Going back to you, Max, which is a perfect example, and it's not to put anybody down because we're on a learning, not low. You're sitting here, and this is not ego, because I don't talk about that either, but I've put a lot of time and effort into what I'm doing, and in other lifetimes too. But you're starting, and how amazing is that? You're not here by coincidence. You're here because you wanted to be here, although you don't know that right now. And what you're learning every week, that if you're here every week, which I hope you are, you'll learn a little bit more, and a little bit more. So I can say this to you, but you know what? The more you're learning, it's even going to seem more clearer to you what I'm saying. Does that make sense? Now the guy, it must be from the Palladium, because I've always had somebody say, does that make sense? And that person is with me right now. I do not know the name. I thought they were from the Galactic Federation, but it seems that they're not. Okay.
I want to take it in a little bit of a different direction. I want to shift, but before we move on, do you have any questions, Max? Like, is this clear?
Yeah. I mean, it seems mostly like what I'm experiencing is it goes exponentially, which is actually good news. You know, the more you learn, like the faster I feel like I'm starting to learn the other new things. I don't know if that makes sense to you guys.
Yeah, for sure, because you're open to it. Remember, awareness and willingness.
And little by little too, because your little by little could be a day, it could be a month. It doesn't matter, because we're all doing our own separate journeys. But that's what Aldo, I know you're not too familiar with who Aldo was. Yeah. So he would always say little by little by little, because you can't jump, but you could get that little in a minute. It doesn't matter, as long as you start with that little, and then it gets bigger and bigger and goes on and on and on. You're expanding our consciousness.
So, I have another question.
I love it. They're saying that. They're saying that. They love it.
Okay. All right, you guys ready? So here's the
Close
thing.
my eyes, actually.
We talk about past lives, but we all know that if everything has happened concurrently, they're not past lives. And if we are multidimensional human beings, that the person that is sitting here now, the Dana Sardano that is sitting here now, there are all sorts of past lives, there's all sorts of different dimension versions of me. So my question is, if I am working in this reality and I am raising my frequency, is it going to affect those other lives in a positive way? And conversely, if a version of me in another life, a past life, will say, is, you know, really crap in the bed and lowering their frequency,
I got the answer.
is it going to affect me? And what does that look like? I'd love to hear about
Okay,
that.
well, my friend Aldo has just come in, because he taught me this.
Aldo!
And it made and he doesn't mind. He said, they're here, but I have to speak.
Okay.
Okay. He told me about, because this happened to me, and my name is Sally, but I call myself Zena. I know you don't know my story, but I actually changed overnight. I was in hospital, I came out a completely different person. He's telling me to tell you this. He then explained that I didn't understand. This was like, I did, but I didn't know, 20-something years ago that he told me this. We have parallels where other places, it's all going on at the same time.
Concurrently.
At that time, it was very, it's still not easy.
Yeah.
But it was difficult to comprehend that. But I had had the experience of changing. And they actually told me to call myself Zena. That's why I called the show Zena. What happened, Sally, in that other lifetime, went to hospital that night. I wanted to learn more. Zena, who was running at the same time as me, it's all happening at once, knew more. I'm getting goosebumps all over me. Zena knew more. So the only way that I then could convey or go on my journey to a higher level of understanding was to become Zena.
Allow Zena to
So
step
he
in.
told me that. He allowed, I mean, it's not quite
That's
like
a big
walk-in.
deal.
Yes, it was.
But it's kind of walk-in-y.
It's a walk-in, but but yes, it is.
But it's a
actually
walk-in with, it sounds to me like conscious permission.
yes,
as opposed
actually,
to
most walk-ins are conscious permission.
But-
We just know it. And you're right. You're actually absolutely right in saying that, but I didn't see it until this second. I knew about the parallels, and I knew that I became Zena, which
Yeah.
I am, because Zena already had the knowing that I now have. Sally was on the quest to learn more. So it was quicker and easier to do it in our lifetime now where we are, if that makes sense. to
Very
you.
cool.
So that was, that was a perfect question. But it goes on even further, because I got validations of that. I did not know that. I just knew everyone said, you're different. I'm suddenly drawing. I'd never drawn. I'm drawing from past lives. Sally doesn't doing that. I think I mentioned this the other week on the show. I went to Celebration where I was living. The doctor there, and he asked me, I said, I've just come out of the hospital. He had no record of me, Dina. He was looking there, and he said, Dana, my friend Dina was with me at that time. That's strange, I keep calling her Dina. And he said, but you just say you were admitted to hospital and came out the next day. They have no records. So I was admitted in the other parallel, so
Yeah.
to speak, as Sally, but I came out as Zena, so there was no record of me. And I have proof on that. Sorry, I had to.
So I mean, so you mentioned the walk-in, which
That's
is an
difficult, by the
interesting
way, for starters.
topic, and I'm wondering. So, did the Xena and Sally merge, or did
Yeah.
the one Sally leave and Xena took the
Okay,
place?
I'm going to go. It's a little bit deep, and I know that you're starting off.
Yeah.
Sally actually passed. That happened to me. I don't know if that happens to everyone.
Okay.
That Sally has the same people here, but that particular Sally is now Xena, which is me
Got it.
now. So although I'm the same, I don't remember, which sometimes we don't anyway, a lot of the things that were happening because I'm now on a higher frequency. Now that's very difficult to understand. But I am proof for myself. I can only talk for me that I know that happened. But now I don't know if everyone, because it's a parallel actually. They are actually parallel
Yeah,
lives,
yeah.
exactly the same, but it's a parallel.
Like the timelines we talked
The
about.
timeline is slightly different
Okay.
because
Yeah,
you'll have timelines on both of them.
Oh,
This is a
okay.
parallel that's going exactly the same thing. But there may be things, because I don't remember, that I've only remembered now in this particular
Okay.
parallel.
Okay.
So it's kind of, it's a little confusing, and they're telling me that. So we're doing this gradually. But I think with, I keep wanting to call you Dana. I'm sorry. Because
listen,
she
I
was
don't
my
get- I'm
very
not
good
offended.
friend during the period of that happening. And I never mentioned Dina very much. Dina and Dana. I am. They're saying to me, bring yourself back, girl. Bring yourself
Pull it
back.
together.
But the fact that you're here is good for me to explain more because I do need, with their help and yours,
To be
just
able
go-
to express
bring
it.
forth what I'm saying.
So could
I get to have dinner every night with Sally, but some nights I have dinner with Zena.
You never have Sally. You have Xena, but sometimes Xena forgets who she is and will come down to the level that Sally was. And that's not criticism of me. I don't remember Sally. I just know because I'm not Sally anymore. Sally is not there. Now, that's hard to understand. You knew me from another lifetime. And not lifetime, I keep saying that. And there are things that you bring up that I don't remember because
I knew
truthfully-
you when you were just Sally.
Yes. Well, we're all.
So you know,
no,
you've known
no,
both.
That's not quite accurate
Oh.
because Xena was somewhere else, and there could be. There is a man actually who Aldo told me too, but I've merged, so that's okay.
Yeah.
And his name is. It's an Italian name, and we actually found him. That's going to get very complicated.
Are you saying there's a man in there?
No, who I am.
she's a man, maybe.
No, but we have different it's different aspects of ourselves. So that person you can merge, and I was ready to do that. It's like really, you talk about the movies, Three Faces of Eve, or you have it's not unlike that, and that's what could be coming on with people that have multiple personalities disorders.
100%. So
See
I just want to just add a layer of clarity what you're saying because I could see
Right.
the eyes. I could see Max was like, what?
Well, Max is great with expressions.
But here's the thing, Xena is still an aspect of Sally.
That's right.
So if we are moving up in frequency, right, and Sally went to the hospital and her frequency's here, and Xena's all the way here, for Sally to get here. So when Xena steps in an aspect of Sally, all of a sudden there's this jump in frequency. I get that. But there's also...
Still had to do the steps. That's
Still-
going to the 5 to the 10.
Yeah.
Oh my God, they just explained that to me. They're saying that's why we use the analogy of the 1 to 5, 5 to 10, where on mine, I'm actually now nearly at the 10 because I've reached where Xena is, who's now still learning. I see it. Oh
And-
my
and
gosh,
there-
does that make sense? Yes.
And there's that merging,
Yes.
which is really, really cool. So I want to just circle back to the whole like walk-in sort of thing because it used to be my understanding. It's more of a crude understanding before that if I couldn't fulfill my contract, my mission, whatever it is I'm supposed to do here, another either version of me, somebody of a higher frequency, somebody willing to fulfill the mission, the purpose, would walk in, right? But what my understanding now is there's constant walk-ins because as my frequency raises, I am now able to align with higher frequencies that are aspects of myself that appear to be outside of me. And that's what it
a
is.
really good example. But when we, in my particular case, because I'm going to talk about me, it happens to many people, but me personally, Sally had only reached that level. Zena was there to help her out, so to speak. Zena had a lot more knowing of what we're talking about. So Zena could go through right now, let's say when I pass, go to another dimension, because we transition, I like to say, yeah, is that Zena could be going up to a 15 as Zena. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So you as
Well, call me Dana.
Dina, whatever.
How about D?
Okay.
How about just D?
Yeah, and that's ridiculous because of where I am at with this section.
Yeah.
My energy is very high. You could go to a 15 or 20, but you're there because we're at that same vibrational energy. So we've met at that at that energy. So whatever we're putting out, we're going to meet people at that level. The more we want to learn, we're raising ourselves to someone that is at a higher vibrational energy, because we never stop learning. We go higher and higher. But we've reached that point of, let's say, of the point that we're at right now, that you can still continue as who you are, and I can continue as Zena.
Do you mind if I shift to another?
Not at all.
So I want to ask you some questions to help people who are worried or concerned about when their frequency is at a certain level, like what they could bring to them. So I just want to just set the stage. So if we all carry a frequency and we understand that we align with things of similar frequency, there are things that are in physical manifestations, like this is all tangible, and then there are thought forms, there are energetic components, there are disincarnate energies, right? You have like light beings and that exist, and then there's people who don't even realize. There's people who do realize they're connecting and channeling, and people who don't realize. And I believe that a lot of people are concerned that how do I know what's connecting with me? How do I know what thought form? And please talk to us about the importance of frequency to alleviate the fear of that, or the importance of alleviating the fear to maintain the frequency.
Okay, I love it. And I'm going to keep this very simple. You know how you know? With what's around you. So if you see things going wrong, and you know how people say, well, one thing goes wrong and another, because you haven't shifted your frequency, you haven't moved up, and it will continue and continue. I'm having a bad day, I'm having a worse day, I'm meeting these people, they're so depressed. You're going to keep meeting people. I'm not saying runs complete. The idea is you can tell where you are by what's going on. It's simple.
So what happens, people who are, especially now that the world is shifting and more people are open to this sort of stuff, what happens to people who are trying to connect with things from other energies, from other realms? Please explain to us why the frequency is so important when they're connecting with energies from other realms.
Actually, from what I'm hearing from them, and I also understand this as best I can, you're only going to meet these people when you're at a higher frequency. Let's talk about aliens, because they exist and they're here.
They really? No, I'm just kidding.
But I was actually saying this to Steve the other day. I actually said that most spiritual, let's call us spiritual, I don't know what to call us, but we're spiritual, understand a lot about aliens or have had visitations from aliens, because we're at that level. You talk to someone who's at a lower level, even today, although it's becoming much more acceptable, they're going, what are you, out of your mind? You know, how do you believe in this? But because we're at a higher vibration, I openly admit that I've been, I've gone to different planets. Even at the time that I was doing it, even that I wrote about that, it was hard for me to think that I had been abducted. I was actually in spaceships. I described the ships, but my mind hadn't actually caught up, if I think about it. And I had Aldo living with me at that time, helping me. That I just said, well, I don't know. I know I was there. But today, it suddenly opened up. How in the world could I be on a spacecraft if I hadn't been abducted? I mean, come on.
Yeah.
And this was happening 3 times a week. I write it all 20 years ago in my book because I was ready. But I hadn't caught up to what just opening up now, they're helping me. I hadn't caught up yet to quite even what was happening to me. It took me a long time. I knew that I was experiencing these things and they were helping me. I see things, I remember what they said, I heard them, I see the people that I met, I see the planets, but I still wasn't quite ready to take it all in, although I was writing it down. Yeah. I am today, completely.
But you said something I do want to circle back to that I found interesting. You said, somebody with a lower frequency is not even going to be open to, but what about people who carry a lower, denser energy, a lower frequency, people who live in fear and self-doubt, who still have that awareness, because they're not mutually exclusive. So if I carry fear, self-doubt, insecurity, I carry these dense energies, these low frequency things, traumas that I have not reconciled, and I am connecting with energies. Are there pitfalls to that? Are there things that I should be concerned about?
Zena would not answer this way. I'm being told to. Yes, there are pitfalls.
What are the pitfalls?
Well, that's here. I need them very much right now because the fear people that, we're going right to commercial. That's good though. Okay. We'll hold that thought. And then I was just getting kind of an answer, but that's
Everybody remember the word pitfalls.
Because it's going to take, the reason is I could answer it, but it's going to take a while. So let's thank you, Dawn. I needed that. You didn't say much, but you showed me. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
A true story, Call Me Zena, is the telling of Sally Bernard. Born in London, England at the end of the Second World War, she came into the U.S. in 1979. A mother of 2 and a grandmother of 4, she settled in Florida and worked in real estate. While going through a difficult time in her life, she was admitted into a hospital overnight in December of 2005. While settling back into her life, she began having vivid dreams and documenting them. By the 3rd dream, a lady gave her a message to draw. With no artistic background or interest into art or history, Sally listened to her dreams and grabbed a paper and crayons. Today, she has over 150 pieces of inspiring art and poetry. This book follows her journey and interpretations of these messages. She describes in detail on how she is able to astral a project and who she has met along her travels, including her spirit guides. This book will show you how anything is possible with an open mind. These events have changed Sally's life and direction, and this book will show you how to change yours. Purchase Call Me Zena on Amazon today, authorhouse.com and amazon.com.
What if your soul could speak? On Call Me Zena with Sally Barnard, we explore the whispers of past lives, soul connections, and the spiritual memories that may be guiding your journey today.
I'm talking to people maybe that are on a higher dimension.
Have a question about your experiences? Call into the show live at 888-899-44995, Studio A, and share your story as we dive deeper into the mysteries of the soul together. Want to continue the journey beyond the airwaves? Purchase Sally's book, Call Me Zena, available now on Amazon and Author House, and uncover even more insight into soul remembrance and connection. Join Sally every Monday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on all social media platforms for an inspiring, intuitive, and soul awakening experience. Call in, tune in, awaken what your soul already knows.
Thank you for joining me through this journey of self-discovery with the help of my spirit guides. I'm Sally Bernard, and you can find my book at authorhouse and amazon.com or visit my art on my clothing in my boutique at artbysallybernard.com. Now back to the show. Hi, I don't think that was coincidence, the break. I probably needed it for a second. Thank you, Dawn, for that. Okay, so we'll go back if you wouldn't mind asking me the question.
Of course, and I swore I would remember, and it's gone. Help us out here. Oh yeah. So initially you were talking about how somebody of a lower frequency would not even be open to this sort of stuff, but I disagree with that. I think there are people that have lower, denser energies that are open to this stuff, but there are pitfalls to having a low, dense energy and then connecting.
That's exactly what I was going to say. It doesn't mean that it's not, it happens to everybody. It depends what you see where you are. So the higher vibrational energy is going to show you more than what you're at a lower vibrational energy. Do you understand that? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Do you understand it? Because I know you do, but they're saying they apologize. They want to say, does that make sense? Okay. Thank you, guys. So it doesn't mean that it's not happening, but they're not going to be able to make sense of it.
Yeah, but what happens when, like again, if I live in fear and I live with insecurity, and the manifestations of that, right? The world that I live in is showing that I'm in an abusive relationship. I worry about money and all of those things. The energies, and I'm not talking about the physical stuff. The energies that I attract, could it possibly be more of a denser energy? What type of energies? If I have a higher vibration, I'm going to connect with Pleiadians or Arcturians because they are of that high frequency. What could I possibly be connecting with if I have a denser energy, and how can people avoid that?
Well, the fact that we know about it, it's easier, because if you're getting that and you're feeling everything, let's say, is going wrong around you, you change that energy. You can still fall back into that energy. Just because you're here doesn't mean to say that, but you don't stay in it as long because you're aware of it. The people that are not aware of it, unfortunately, a lot of people live their lives that way because they don't know different.
And are they vulnerable to attachments?
Absolutely, because they feed on that. There is there's the light and dark, which you know about.
What does that look like?
The dark will feed on the lower vibrational energy because they can. It's as simple as that. If you're aware of it, even just being aware of it, it's harder for them to get, let's call them them to get to you. They still can, and we need to protect ourselves. But I honestly, and I say that openly, and Steve's heard me say that, I am not fearful, because the worst thing to do this is if you're fearful, because the moment you get fearful, you're going to attract fear.
That's where I was hoping the conversation
they knew that already.
They knew where I was going.
Yeah. So if you're coming into awareness, but you can say to yourself, an example, because many people can do this, I want to know more, I saw this, but I'm scared. Well, it's better you don't get scared, because it doesn't mean that it won't happen, but it can happen the wrong way. It can happen not the way that you want to see more, because you can, if you don't, very important to protect yourself, and I don't do it, hardly at all, but I know I am absolutely aware that Aldo is protecting me. He was very, very high frequency. So I'm not going to say it will never happen, but in my mind I feel it will never happen, and that's what's important. What we believe, we see.
Of course. Do they have any, I wouldn't say simple, but rudimentary suggestions on how not only to raise our frequency while still addressing the dense energy that we have, especially with what's going on in the world?
Well, it's important because we're learning, so we can't have everything, this is beautiful, this is nice, and blah, 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 but if we stay there, when we see what's going on, and it's still going on, nothing changes, but we're looking at it more, that we're observing it. So you're able to take that first step in observing. Watch the news. I'm someone that I don't go crazy over the news, but I will watch the news because I want to know what's going on in the world. But as long as I observe that, and also politics, let's take both sides. They're not getting into that, we're not touching it. But in order to learn, you really need to see both sides of anything. But as long as you take a stand of observing it, then you're going to cope with whatever the situation is better, because you're coping from a higher vibrational energy. It's easier. It's much easier.
I have a question for them, and I was hesitant to go in this direction, so we'll see if they're willing to go here.
I'm right there. So.
Okay. So I was asking the question about walk-ins, about us connecting with a higher vibration. But on the flip side, I was going in the direction about what about people who have a denser energy and what can attach or connect to them. Now, as things begin to come to the forefront in society, we're starting, the veil is thinning, as we know, and the truths are coming out. And I'm starting to see little inklings of people, public figures, people that we think are one thing, but it appears that they have been substituted with another.
Yes.
Okay? I'd like to know more about what that is going to look like as things unfold? Are we going to get the truths of who has been substituted and substituted with what?
Okay. I know exactly, and they know that I know what you're talking about. Okay. So what is it depends which way the world goes, Dina. It's very important. We're at we're at a very critical point in our evolution, actually, in everything. So there's, let's say, and call it as it is, there's one side that's dark and there's one side that's light. So the more that we tune in to lower vibrational energy, I'm not going to say they're winning because, but we know the more you're attached to it, the more they can attach to you.
Yes.
But if you walk around not scared and say, okay, this is going to be okay, the more that we can bring to our side, let's call it the light side, actually, and I heard this the other day, I was watching a program, because people that know understand this. They don't get it, they don't like it, but the more we put out a higher frequency, guess what? Let's put it in a nice way. It's going to dim the lights of the dark a little bit. Yeah. So they'll do anything on the dark side. Let's talk about it as it's real, because it is. There's cloning. There's all sorts of things going on, okay? Well, that might be a bit much for people, but yes, that people that want to be taken over and look differently can. That's the most nicest way of putting it.
Yeah.
Sure they can. Can they, let's say, impersonate? But the person they're impersonating, and we're not mentioning any names, is very familiar because they're one of them. They're just telling me that. That makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
So they're able to do it because it's them.
Just as
Damn.
Zena is an aspect of
Absolutely.
Sally,
Oh, this is
we'll just call Celebrity X
Yes.
is an aspect of Celebrity Y and still steps in.
That's correct.
Because they could.
Because they can.
Because they
it's
can.
Them. It's their being.
It's pretty crazy what's
That's
happening.
crazy. Yes. And
Are we
we
the
see
only
it.
two that are like? Is this getting way too out there?
Can you figure this out?
I mean, I feel like you might be referring to somebody and I don't.
No,
I
we're
don't-
not referring to any particular person because
Okay.
there's many
Okay.
people. No, I'm not. Just as a disclaimer, I am not, absolutely not, and I know who you're thinking, absolutely not referring to anybody. It can be anyone. It could be me. It's not me. But it's generalizing. I'm
Okay.
generalizing. So I'm glad you brought that up because it looks like I'm getting into something that I want no part of.
Yeah, right.
Absolutely. So
But
I make the
I think
disclaimer.
your viewers expect you to go to a higher place than they're at so they can learn. So
Well, I think they're telling me, reminding me that I had mentioned that what's going on, I'm looking at it and observing it. They want me to tell you that. So whatever is going on, it's okay. I believe that everything that's happened has been planned anyway because we're playing a game. So that game is only what we're doing right now. So you actually, and Aldo told me this, we actually have to play all parts in that game, depending on where we are. So you see more perhaps in this lifetime than I saw maybe from many lifetimes ago. So it is really good and bad has to exist. Let's end the conversation that way. Because without the dark, if everything was light, we wouldn't know what dark was,
Of course.
positive or negativity. So we're not judging, we're learning. And that's the best thing, we're observing. And if you look at it that way, everything that's going on makes more sense.
Yeah, and I always say broken record hour with Dana Sardana.
But thank you for that.
The best way that you can observe without judgment is to get yourself aligned and in a place of non-attachment, and then you can see it just for what it is.
Absolutely.
So
and you don't get over enthusiastic. There's a lot going on now. Oh, I can't stand that. I like this. No, you don't want to get caught up in any of that. It's a game.
It's a game. Yeah. It is definitely just put on your tinfoil hat, eat your popcorn, and just
it is
allow
what it
things
is.
to unfold.
And okay, he's right, she's right, he's right. Doesn't matter. It does not matter.
Yeah.
They're playing their game too.
Yeah. Do you mind if I shift the
by all means,
conversation?
no.
So I'm just curious. I know Max for sure, and I am under the very strong belief that the extraterrestrials are. It's going to be undeniable disclosure within the next year or so. They're like, you can't convince me otherwise.
No, absolutely.
But here's my question: is those that are of the Pleiadian star system, those are of Arcturus, Arcturian. I'm assuming that they are going to be those of the forefront because they're probably the most similar to us in appearance and higher frequency, but they've been assisting us all along.
They've been here. We just don't. If you don't know, you don't know.
Yeah,
They're here.
but there's going to be. You have no choice but to know.
You'll see, because we're physically going to see the spaceships. We're going to see them,
and that's
I believe
happening.
them and getting out of them, so that it's absolute proof. Yes.
Yeah. Did they have anything that they want to share about that?
There's, timing is timing. But we're being prepared, okay? Even the ones that are not believers, that never would believe, are being prepared. That's why it's personally, it's all being kept from us, but in some ways, maybe it's not a bad thing, because a lot of people are now beginning to understand that there is a possibility that there is,
100%.
So once we get to that level, there'll still be people like, I don't know, truthfully, and they're not about to tell me what may happen. But I believe, and I don't really want to get into this too much, we can do it another time, there are two earths. So the ones that need to be, let's say, and this is way out, but need to be on the other earth will continue. The ones that are learning, and I think you know what I'm talking about, will be on the new earth, or vice versa, it doesn't matter. We'll be on that earth. So most people have accepted it, but there will be, and it has to be a different way, because not everyone is going to learn in this lifetime.
And the conversation has been frequency, because it really comes down to us raising our frequency, so we're available to these things. But do they have any advice in preparation for those of us who really, because the world is going to change in the next decade.
It is.
It is going to change dramatically. How, what do we do?
We just do what we're doing. And the more people, by talking, by showing people, because we have an audience here. It may not be the biggest audience, but there are people on a bigger audience, but they share what we're talking about. If you find an interest, let people begin to open up to what we're talking about. So the more people that become aware that there's something else other than just what we see, will not be in absolute fear. It's going to happen. There are people that will, even if they've heard it, it takes time to believe what's happening. Yeah. But the main thing is you pass this on. Everybody that's even just beginning, say, please listen to this show. I talk about Gaia TV, or on YouTube. You can find the most interesting shows on those programs, to tell people, please just keep it. Not everyone will keep an open mind, and that's acceptable too. We're all different, but just keep the ones that are tuning in now. Tell your friends, talk about it. Say, well, I think most of my listeners, because they've continued, will understand this, but tell people that has a little bit of interest, which many more people are. They may not, like here, I love you on my show, because, it's not to put you down in any way, Max, but you came out with a beautiful question from what I see just now, because they're opening up, and that's the main thing, just to open up. Right?
What do you say to those who have very strong beliefs? We'll just say religious beliefs.
I knew you were going to say that.
Well,
yes.
We might as well just touch fingers and just sit here and quiet.
I knew that. Well, telepathy is a real thing. Okay. It's going to be, this is not easy. Our journey is not easy.
Yeah.
But you know what? There has to be chaos, and that's going on right now.
Yeah.
And people are so sick and tired of chaos. It's like someone that, I don't want to say an alcoholic, but anybody that has an addiction can suddenly say, I've had enough, because they've reached their rock bottom. Well, think what's going on Earth right now.
The dark night of the soul.
Is there a way up? Is there a different, well, not even up, is there a way? That's happening to Earth right now.
Yeah.
Earth is crying out, saying, I'm done. So what's happening, the darkest side, not just the darkest, people with a lower energy are tuning in to all the bad things that are happening. There has to be chaos, if you think about it, because there is chaos, for us to even understand that something can be different. It's like everything is negative. How do you get to the positivity? When you've had enough, guess what? You'll start beginning to learn a little bit more about the positivity. And that's what's going on right now in the world.
So it's my understanding that initially aliens came here for our natural resources, our minerals. And
I told him the story. I know, I'm saying I told you the story, yeah.
Go on.
So what's the next step for them?
for the
What else do they want now? Where
no,
are they going with
aliens
it?
are here to help us. I absolutely want to say there are 2 or 3 different races that may not be, but there's so many different aliens. We're not really aliens, they're us, we're them, but that are visiting us. They're here, and many people say, but I'm going to be scared. They're here. They don't want us to blow ourselves up. Believe me, they don't. We're a planet that they've been watching. We're an experiment, which I'm sure you know too about this. So they're watching us. Do they want... We have so much power within ourselves. They want to wake us up to the power. Manifestation is one of them. We just don't know that we can do it. So they want us to catch up with them. There are some aliens that may not even be as experienced as us, but the ones that are helping us are the ones that want to show us that there is a, that they're here and they're amongst us and they don't want us blowing ourselves up.
So that's the next phase.
Well, yeah, they're not looking for, which I had told him about the gold and everything, because they experienced that. That's all in our time. There is no time. That they've been there, done that. Let's get on. If anybody knows the story from what most people know from Zecharia Sitchin.
Yeah, but the reptilians that they have ownership of this planet, they have been, we're like, the way we look at animals or cattle is how they look at us.
They look at us.
And that's why their level of lack of empathy and compassion for us and their need to control us and enslave us in the way they do. We say enslave, right? You immediately think of slave, but enslave means
Steve does understand a lot of this because I've
So
talked
what
to
you're
him
saying
about
is
it.
we're their ant farm.
Yeah.
And I mean, some of the things
And if their level of control and power and wealth is contingent on us being slaves to the system. And that's why I see they're acting, it's almost like toddlers, like it keeps getting crazier and crazier, more chaotic, the more of us that wake up, because they have to throw in another headbutt, another kicking and screaming, and it's becoming so absurd, which is doing the opposite of what they want. It's waking more people up, right? So the behavior is getting so crazy to control us, but it's waking us up even more because we're able to see how ridiculous it is. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. And just this is for you, Steve. You've heard my story. I explained how they came to Earth and how they wanted the gold and how everything that went along with it. How am I sitting in a studio with Dana here and she's telling you what I tell you and all these things? If this wasn't real, I haven't spoken to her about this. And anybody that's at our level will know this. That's why I say the ones that are higher vibrational energy will see the aliens because we know the stories. We're not judging anybody.
Right, so
it's what happened.
So going back,
There's much more than that.
going back thousands of years, and then the building of the pyramids and all that, and the technology that came with that, there are still hordes of people that have no clue that we had help doing that.
Yeah.
Right. And you asked me...
When do they wake up?
Well,
They may not.
They may never wake up. Remember I said there's another Earth? It's waiting for us, okay? There are 2 Earths. That's complicated, and let's not even go there, but we can talk about it at another time. But you understand enough that you see, he's beginning to see what goes on. However, I would like the question, if you could ask me what you asked me yesterday. He said, I've told him the whole story, let's say the reptilians or whatever you want to call them, about what's going on. But he said, well, how are you? I'd never heard of this before. Well, the thing is a lot is put out on the internet today, but it's also controlled, okay? So what you read is what most people think they know. It's not that bad. It's bad, but it's nothing to what they really are.
Yeah, that's where discernment, that's why it's really important to...
Very important.
Yeah.
So the average, let's say not, I don't even want to say average because I'm putting someone down, but what people know, they think they know, they say, but how come nobody ever told you that? Well, more and more is being exposed, but it's only being exposed by the way they want you to see it.
Yeah. I remember asking, I call them the them.
Yeah,
asking
I like
them, it had to be 6-7 years ago, about Dolores Cannon's works. And I'm like, how much of what she's picking up, how much of that is true? And they actually gave me an exact number. They're like 62%.
That's what I wanted to ask you.
Yeah, they're like 62%. And I was like, really? Is it lies? They're like, it's not lies. What it is it's the level of collectively what we are able to understand and how she was able to understand at that time, she was able to understand at 62%. I think now, because she wrote these
Had
books
she have
20 years
lived
ago,
long, although her daughter is still is carrying on, I think.
But what she wrote was pre-2014.
Exactly.
So now, because we are evolving, we are expanding our awareness collectively, you know, with the light coming in and the vibration of the earth and all of that stuff, that it would be, if she was writing those books now, and with her level of understanding now, it might be 85%.
Well, that's exactly what my question was leading to, because he said to me yesterday, well, you said there's only a very small percentage of people that were able to understand this. There is only a small percentage of people to understand the truth of what's going on. That is a small percent. There's a larger percent of people which is out in the open, but you go deeper, which I know that you know.
Yeah.
If you go deeper into that, and I think in order to be able to do that too, you have to have a certain amount of knowing, spirituality, that Aldo used to tell me, because he doesn't mind me talking about it now, he unfortunately isn't here, would tell me the truth of what is actually going on. That's a very small percentage of people, Steve. But the larger one.
But I'll tell you, the world that I live in, the people that I communicate with, what I see on
They will
social
know.
media, to me, it feels like the whole world knows.
Yes,
because
that's
that's all I. But if we all
That's right.
just focus on our worlds, and then, like we said, we attract people that are like us, and then our worlds expand. I look at the new Earth that we talk about, like, was it mitosis in biology? You had the cell in the cell, and then it opens, and then this cell kind of, and then they share a nucleus, and then it like splits, right?
Yeah, that's
This
exactly
is why
what,
I
that's
went into the
exactly-
humanities and not science and math. But
Yes,
you
Mrs.
see what I'm talking
Sargento,
about?
Thank you very much.
But when it's splitting, it's like this, right? And there's like 2 strands, 3 strands until you have 2 cells, right?
Perfect
So
analogy.
I feel like that's what's happening with the Earth. There's been this stretch energetically and this polarity, because you have the people that are all the way over here that want to fight on the internet about politics, people all the way over here who are in fields with their crystals and their sage, right? And you have them, and it's so opposed that eventually, boop,
It will,
then
it
you
has
have
to,
2
because
cells.
it's like an elastic band. I'd say
Like
it's
elastic
going.
band.
The more you pull
But
it,
if you're just focused on your cell, who cares?
doesn't
about
matter.
this cell?
That's exactly right, because you're looking at it from a different perspective, because you're actually watching it happening. You're observing, and that's what Aldo taught me too. Don't get caught up with it. Well, it's easy to say that. It's harder to do it. But if you're aware that you're not going to get caught up with all this nonsense, just say to yourself, it's a game. We all knew it was going to happen. We just don't remember. Everything that happens has been planned.
That was a great example, Dana.
It was terrible
yes.
Execution, but thank you.
No,
for
no,
getting
it was very good, Dana.
I'm
It-
like, the thing with the thing.
No,
and you
the thing is, it was
Push.
perfect because it explained it. It doesn't matter how we get to that point, as long as people can understand it. We don't.
Yeah.
It's not confusing, and to keep it simple is the best way. That was a little bit expanded, but that was perfect. It was
Yeah.
perfect.
So it sounds to me, just so make sure to bring it
Yeah.
home, that we understand the end of the day, in order to maintain that non-attachment, in order to observe what's going on in the world without becoming attached emotionally and immersed in the fear, is to really do the work of self growth.
You need, in order to, which I think we talked about, they're telling me on the 12 o'clock show, because if you don't, let's use the analogy of loving yourself, you can't give love. It's the same thing. If you don't understand what's going on, how can you talk about it? So the most important, as far as I see it, is to learn at any time you can. Take in the information. Don't lose track of that. I've told you that, Steve. I'm not telling anything different to what I tell you. Because if you're not ready, and that's not personally, it's okay too. But I can convey to a certain amount because I had my teacher. So I can teach you what he taught me. He used to say to me, when I pass, be my mouthpiece. Well, I've learned a lot, even since he's gone, that he wanted me to know. So he's showing me from the other dimension, or whatever we call it.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. So if you're ready, you're like a sponge. You're absorbing it all. It may not make sense, but that concentration has to go towards what we're learning.
So what
Because-
is it that keeps the world from from coming around to this way of thinking? Is it naivety? Is it
No, it's a lot of
stupidity?
things,
Fear.
and that's a very good question. It's the fear.
I just want to show you. I'm sorry. Look at the clock.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, okay. We have to go.
I think so.
Yeah. You know, and it's the fear that they're feeding us. Okay. They.
It's by design.
That because they don't want us to wake up.
There it is.
That's a perfect way to end the. They don't want us to wake up. Or guess what? And at this point, it's okay. Whoever is listening, we are
Rise and
waking
shine.
up. Right. We're waking up. Was good.
Well, join us
thank
again
you.
next
Thank you.
week.
Thank you.
Happy
You're
Easter,
welcome.
happy Passover, and
Happy everything.
Happy
And a happy
everything.
life. Bye-bye, everybody. I think I said goodbye. Oh, no, it's still there. Bye-bye. But please tune in next week. This show is getting very, very, I'm not going to say strange, but we're getting to
Out there.
Yeah.
You have been watching Call Me Zena with your host, Sally Bernard. As an artist, author, and spiritual experiencer, know that you can always seek me out for resources by visiting artbysallybernard.com. Join us next week, Mondays at 2:30.